An important part of understanding forces is understanding the difference between a real force and a fictitious force. And this comes into play because, what we experience as humans in our bodies, and the way that our brain makes sense of things that we feel, is kind of the opposite of what's actually happening in terms of forces. Okay, what do I mean by that? When we accelerate, and I'm talking about we as humans, okay, our bodies perceive a force in the opposite direction to the actual force. Let's look at an example to see what that means. So let's go back to the case with the bus. Okay, the bus, and these are the guys sitting on there, standing on the bus. Okay, the bus is going to accelerate in this direction. All of these people will also accelerate in this direction. And that means that there is a net force making them accelerate in that direction, pushing them. For these two people, that force that's pushing them in that direction is the friction force, static friction between their butts and the seat, pushing them to the right. That force is making them accelerate. For this guy, it's going to be static friction on his feet, and then also maybe a little bit of tension here is going to pull him forward to the right to make him accelerate. Okay, but now imagine you're this guy, and you're standing here, and suddenly let's just make it really, let's exaggerate and say that this bus driver just goes from rest and just slams on the gas to accelerate as fast as he can. And so all these people are just going to be jerked forward as fast as they can. What does this guy feel? Imagine you're on a bus and suddenly you just go forward super, super, super fast. What does he feel? He feels a force pushing him in this direction. That's what he perceives. He thinks that there's a force that pushes him in this direction. If he were not holding on to this thing, he might even fall backwards. And so he perceives as if there's a force pushing him to the left. There is no actual force pushing him to the left. That's just what he feels. The actual force is pushing him to the right. That's what's making him accelerate. But he feels a force pushing him to the left. Okay? So whatever force is actually pushing him forward, the static friction and the tension here, that's a real force. That's what we care about in physics. This thing here, this thing that he perceives, is what we call a fictitious force. So our bodies always perceive a fictitious force, which is in the opposite direction of the actual real forces that are acting on our bodies. Okay? And we're going to come back and talk about this later when we talk about circular motion. One other example I'll just end with to give you an example. If you've ever been to Disneyland and you've been on the Star Tours ride, or you've been on any ride where you are like sitting in a chair watching a screen, and then they move the chair around to make you feel like you're moving forward or backward or accelerating or whatever. So on the Star Tours ride, you're sitting in a chair, and they want to make you feel like you're accelerating forward. Like you go into light speed, right? Because it's like Star Wars. So they want to make you feel like you're accelerating forwards. On the screen, they show you going through light speed. They want to trick your body into thinking that you're moving forward. So the way they do that is they tilt your chair back. And when your chair is tilted back, you will feel a real force. You have that component of gravity, the mg sine theta. So there's an actual real force pushing on you like this. But the way our bodies work and our brain, remember our bodies and brain, if our body feels a force in that direction, we think we're accelerating in that direction. So it tricks us. So he thinks when he feels this force, his brain says, you're accelerating forward. Why are you accelerating forward? Because there's force pushing back on you. So in this case, it's kind of flipping it. It's using a real force to trick your brain into, perceiving this force and thinking it's a fictitious force, which means that you're accelerating forward. Okay? It's kind of tricky what's happening, but watch this video one more time and I think it'll make sense.